Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TMOF Wrestling Podcast. We are here today, episode 91. Today is Sunday, the 14th of January 2024, our second episode of the year. We're going to be going through our top 10 Royal Rumble winners of all time in the episode today. We'll start off with a few news bits. Of course, I am your host. My name is Russ. Joining me today,
I'm Ash.
Co-host, here he is. You can do that again now if you want.
Predictions King, Ash, here again. Are you cold and wet again, like you were last week?
No, I am cold though. It's freezing in this flat today for some reason. The summer's terrible for being warm, and then for some reason today, absolutely freezing. Maybe I'm haunted.
Okay.
You never know. You look haunted. You look ghostly, even.
It's being under this light. That's the problem.
I know. It's showing off all those imperfections. Look at it.
Everyone saw that before. They need that light.
I've turned mine off. Give the viewers something less scary to look at.
If I turn my light off, you may be able to see me. Maybe that might be a better thing, but...
I'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? Maybe we should just go back to doing audio only. This would be much easier on the eyes.
Yeah, probably.
But absolutely a great episode coming today. So we've compiled our list of 10 our top 10 Royal Rumble winners of all time, and I think we've probably taken maybe slightly different approaches to it, but we'll find out once we get to it. Ash, before we do kick off with our top 10 Royal Rumble winners of all time, a few bits has happened in the world of wrestling this week. I think, should we start with, I suppose, TNA?
Yeah, it was their first show back as TNA last night as recording. Hard to Kill. Which is apt name because that company should have been dead about 20 million times.
Hard to Kill is the most appropriate pay-per-view name for TNA / Impact Wrestling. We can officially say TNA now. That's going to take some getting used to.
It does, actually, because the amount of times when someone say TNA when it was Impact, you're like, no, it's Impact. You can't call it TNA anymore. Now it's TNA. Yeah.
It's weird because you have to train your brain to not call it TNA anymore. And, you finally sort of get used to calling it Impact Wrestling, and now back to TNA. A lot of people, I think mostly people are happy that it's gone back to TNA. I think the only ones that aren't really too keen on it are the ones that hold obviously a lot of kind of disdain, I suppose, to Vince Russo. Vince Russo was, of course, the one that came up with the name TNA, and I think it is allegedly reported because TNA being tits and arse, and he got a bit of a kick out of it. Yeah. Welcome to the Teston Albert 6-sided ring. But yeah, apparently that was the reason behind it.
All right.
Supposedly. But, I think it's nice to see it back with pretty much the original logo. Are you hoping they're going to bring back the 6-sided ring?
Kind of like with the name change. I'm so comfortable about it now. It's like it would be weird to have it back. They were. I think it was just before pandemic happened that they were going to do a show with the 6-sided ring, but then it was around the time pandemic happened, and they cancelled it, and I don't think they've done it since.
That would be interesting if they just brought it back for a one-off show just to see how it went. See kind of if that drives potentially, because that would be interesting, I think, to see if that drove any increase in attendance figures, certainly for viewers watching on TV or wherever you watch. Just to kind of see if we can get a bit more clarity in I suppose in the modern day as to whether or not the 6-sided ring is a selling point, because that was Eric Bischoff's gripe with it. Was that, of course, when he had entered the fray back in 2010, 2009, 2000.
End of 09, beginning 2010, I think.
Yeah, it was around. Well, I think 2010 was the official kind of, at least the on-screen debut of Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan sort of coming out in that now infamous promo where, they weren't really supposed to be heels, but Hogan had come out and, what was it he said? The crowd are chanting, "We want 6 sides."
Yeah, it's like you had it, but now it's gone. No more 6 sides, no more 8 sides. Yeah, it's now.
Whether you like it or not, change happens whether you like it or not, brother. Like,
Yeah,
that was pretty much the promo, wasn't it?
pretty much.
Really,
No wonder.
yeah,
No
not a
wonder
great
it's
look.
ill later in the year.
It's yeah, I mean, but Eric Bischoff had always said that he hated Six Side. He thought it was silly. Um, didn't see any value in it at all. There was a stories that went around that apparently, Jeff Jarrett was obviously a fan of it, and that he's the one that wanted it. Thought potentially it would get them shelf space in supermarkets for toys. I don't know if that actually came from Jeff Jarrett, like directly, but that's definitely a story that's gone around. I'm pretty sure, which would kind of make sense. But I don't know. I like the idea of it being six-sided ring, but there is a certain level of nostalgia for me for it, because when I first started watching TNA, that's what it looked like. And honestly, that is like the first thing that jumps out at you is, well, it's 6 sides. That's really different.
Yeah, because isn't it the same as Mexico? I mean, they're 6 sides.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. TNA wasn't the first company to use 6 sides.
Yeah, but we never really saw that, and like,
No, not as
it's
a
kind of the
Western.
same way. It's kind of the same way with the Octagon in MMA. It's like, it's different.
Yeah, it's
But I know
different, but
that.
I think.
I know it wasn't like people like Sting will say like it wasn't his favorite, and probably like a lot of the old timers didn't like it because they were so used to 4 sides. But
Yeah,
it's unique. It's something you can say that's different. I might watch this.
well, exactly, and I think that's. I don't know. I kind of feel, to me, I'd like to see it come back, even if it is just for one show, just to see. But we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously, the rebrand to TNA, hopefully that's a revitalization for them. Of course, at Hard to Kill, we had a couple of debuts. I think the most notable was former Dolph Ziggler, or Nick Nemeth. Nemeth?
Whatever.
Nieman. He could be Nieman, Masters of the TNA verse. Master of the Impact verse, Nieman. There you go. That's why I'm not a booker. But he he debuted pretty much straight off the hot the heels of his appearance over in New Japan as well at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
So that was very cool. And the former Dana Brooke showed up as well.
Bargain
What's her
basement
name?
Tony Storm.
Oh, come off of it, will you?
I know it's a joke, innit, because of her appearance, but
I really like Dana. I was actually one of the, sad to say, but I think I was probably one of the minority that was sad to see her leave, because I thought she, even from the stuff that she would put out on social media, she always seemed genuinely hungry to get a shot, to actually kind of like, prove herself and show what she's worth in WWE. And I just, for whatever reason, it never quite came along, did it? She never quite really got that opportunity, which I think is sad. But there you go.
yeah, I think her time had come. She hadn't done it since they dropped the 24/7 title. When that was probably the last thing she did, then they had nothing for her.
Yeah, but they could have had. I mean, it's wrestling. It's predetermined in something where you can book anything to happen. If you couldn't have booked anything for Dana, then do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, different world though, I guess, back then in WWE, wasn't it? So
yeah, I also felt like
when she was released,
after her run with Charlotte, then she was kind of on borrowed time for a little bit after that, but she did all right for herself.
well, it's good to see her in TNA. I can't remember what is her name? What she debuted as?
Well, I'll give you a clue. Her first name is the same as someone who's on this podcast.
I mean,
And it ain't Russell.
I don't think it would have been. But what I'll do is I'll just go and look it up. It's Ash by something, isn't it? No, something by Ashby.
It was something like that. Were they the only two that debuted?
What?
Were they the only two that debuted anyway? Because I'm sure there was someone else. Well, there were newer names that have just made their first match, like Grizzled Young Veterans. I think made their official debut.
Yeah.
Zaya Brookside made their official debut.
Ash by Elegance. Sorry, that's her name.
Is that the name?
Ash by Elegance. That's what she was referred to on commentary. I'm reading this now though because my memory is absolutely terrible now. But I'm reading this as per WrestleZone.
Mm-hmm.
Ash by Elegance. So that's an interesting, sort of unique name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep, she looked amazing. She comes out. Really looking forward to seeing, as I say, what she can do over there now. But yeah, you're right. There was some debuts, some sort of new faces.
And maybe
honestly, maybe the what?
Maybe the last appearance of one face. Trinity.
Yeah, it could be. Obviously, the rumours circulating that she could be headed back to WWE. So, I'm really happy for TNA. I think that I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. Honestly, I think it could be quite good. I think other little bit of news was when we're talking about New Japan very briefly, we obviously saw for the first time since AEW All In Wembley, London. Jungle Boy Jack Perry, well, not Jungle Boy anymore, obviously, but Jack Perry showed up sporting quite the beard, Ash, in New Japan.
Yeah, pretty much. For someone who's as young as he is, he can grow a beard, can't he?
He's grown that beard.
I can't grow it like that, and I've tried.
I know. How's that make you feel?
Not that bad.
Taking away your masculinity by the Jungle Boy, Jack Perry.
Oh, he only did that when I first saw him.
Jack Perry, of course, for those that haven't seen, he's shown up in New Japan Pro Wrestling. They seem to be running the angle where he's he comes out and he had around like an armband saying scapegoat, which he's showing off to the camera too, and proceeded to rip up his AEW contract on New Japan Pro Wrestling television. So looks to me, Ash, as though this is an angle they're running. Obviously, New Japan and AEW have a working relationship.
Yeah,
I think the scapegoat is potentially alluding to the fact that he was one of the young buck sort of boys, and they probably put him up to having this confrontation to get rid of Punk, and obviously as a result he had to be punished as well. It's strange, but the whole thing obviously reeks of a work, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. It's wrestling, it's meant to. But what do you think about the whole thing?
It's highly likely that contract he ripped up was probably the first one. Obviously someone's going to say there's a date on it that says like 2018 or 2019, whenever he signed a contract. And
regardless, it's more symbolic, because even if it was his most recent contract, if it was already signed and the company has their copy as well, you can rip up your own. That doesn't mean that you're no longer, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean you're voided from the contract anymore. It's just symbolism.
Was it a contract like, remember when we watched Swerve's debut and it had his name on it and we knew who it was?
Yeah, well done, Tony.
On it to say,
Tony Schiavone just gave the reveal away before he'd even made the announcement. Quite sad, wasn't it? But who'd have thought back then that Swerve? Yeah, literally exactly that. Yeah, great stuff. But yeah, we'll see. I suppose where they'll go with Jack Perry in this whole storyline. But it is 100%, guys. It is a work.
Yeah, I never bought it. But
no, it's not.
Again, now Japan's starting to get momentum again,
which I'm glad about, because Riddle being announced as joining. Although Riddle's had his little moments, I think, this week, hasn't he? Where was it this week? Or am I behind? But it was talking about how he was originally potentially penciled in to win the 2022 Rumble, and then those claims were
quickly
proven wrong. He was debunked. But no, look, it's cool. New Japan needed a bit of an injection of different stars after losing, quite some big names really in the most recent kind of months and year plus. So it'll be good to see them build that roster up again.
Yeah.
aside from that, I think the only other real big bit of drama, and I mean drama, folks, this week has been how big of a star Tony Khan has made overnight, seemingly. Tony Khan, whatever people want to say about Tony, has absolutely booked Jinder Mahal to the moon this week via Twitter, or sorry, via X.
I still Twitter to me, damn it.
It's still Twitter to me, damn it. In what can only really be described, Ash, I think, as just a real, just unprovoked, out of nowhere explosion, word vomit that Tony Khan which he's got this unfortunate habit of doing, and I personally am not a fan of it because he is the CEO of AEW, and when one of the big criticisms, there are many, but when one of the big criticisms is that Tony needs to stop paying so much attention to WWE, at least like showing that on his own product, and really just focus on what they're doing. It doesn't help when he takes to still Twitter to me, damn it, and goes on a bit of a, pun intended, but a rampage about Jinder Mahal getting a championship match. So what's your understanding of the whole story, Ash? What did you see?
Well,
for the folks listening.
Well, I thought Hook was announced as Samoa Joe's next opponent literally out of nowhere, because
the challenge for the championship.
Because it's like as good as he's been getting, he's nowhere near ready for the big match like this. He's not really apart from like Jack Perry and maybe like being in the ring with other people like that are a decent level. He's not really done a lot to say, oh, he's contender for this title straight away. Because then when we talked about Sting and Darby Allin being undefeated as a tag team for like a year and a half, maybe even more, and they've never been in a title match. So how can someone whose a match is like 3 minutes long on an average, and not in this like a top 10 guy, get this big deal of a match?
So to elaborate on that and the situation, of course, we're actually saying there. So Hook is going to be challenging Samoa Joe for the AEW World Championship, and Hook's AEW record, what was it at the moment? It stands at 28-1.
28-1, or something like that, and he's unbeaten in 20 or something like that.
Yeah, something along those lines. And again, AEW likes to sometimes pay attention to the win-loss record. Tony Khan's issue, which is what he'd come out with, I'll try and find the actual still tweets to me, damn it. But Tony Khan's issue was that he took to X and he'd said that, basically calling out the fact that WWE have booked Jinder Mahal. So just to be clear, I think he's trying to call out the booking of WWE, not Jinder Mahal himself. Mm-hmm. I think by proxy, he was essentially almost trying to bury Jinder Mahal. But I don't think that is really the intention. It was he was trying to sort of poke and jab at the booking in WWE. But like I say, it takes a shot at Jinder inadvertently, I guess. But he's taken there to kind of basically say that Jinder's not won a match in a year, and he comes out on Raw and gets a title shot at the World Heavyweight title against Seth Rollins, which of course is going to be happening on Raw. When he's saying, there's online outrage at Hook challenging Samoa Joe, but then it's okay for Jinder to do it. Where is the rage? That's paraphrasing the tweet somewhat, because honestly, I can't bother to find it now. But that's paraphrasing the tweet somewhat. But that is essentially what he said. And then, of course, the typical Tony Khan sign off on a post. Watch hashtag AEW Dynamite live TBS This kick-started like a whole thing over on X, because everybody was getting involved. USA Network came in with a jab. USA Network, of course, is the home of WWE Raw and soon to be WWE SmackDown when they leave Fox.
Yeah.
For now. Eric Bischoff got involved, Jinder Mahal himself got involved, other wrestlers were getting involved. It got quite gnarly, but I think I don't think it's a good look. First of all, I can't really comment on it. I know a lot of people were saying they didn't really see much outrage for Hook getting a title shot. But so I can't comment because I don't really keep up with the wrestling Twitter or the wrestling socials. Obviously, this has been widely publicized this week.
Yeah.
But people did bring up an interesting fact that if Tony was to is calling out Jinder in the way that he is to say, Jinder Mahal hasn't won a match in a year, yet he's getting the title shot. People were quite quick to point out that, well, actually, Abaddon got a title match when she'd been off TV for a whole year. And then the argument back to that is that, but she came in and she won that match to make a number one contender.
I think she won like 2 or 3 matches in a row. So, yeah. When she hadn't been on TV for like a year.
But the thing is, it's just, I don't know. I think the biggest problem, although there's potentially some sense in what Tony Khan's saying, it's just weird that the CEO of the second biggest wrestling company in the world just took an out of nowhere pot shot at WWE and for their booking of Jinder Mahal. But the thing is, it's inadvertently made Jinder Mahal that much more interesting because, and that's not to say he wasn't interesting already. It was actually really good to see him come out and be the kind of when people were expecting a big name to come out, and then they gave it to us in The Rock, and he had a really good segment with The Rock. Like I said before, I wasn't a fan of the whole. I'm not still not a fan of the whole. I hate America, and it's really outdated. I'm not a big fan of it. But Jinder himself, really good to see him, and nice to see that he's kind of getting a bit of a second lease, I think now, really. And he does have some history with Rollins. I mean, they were the 2 finalists for the first ever NXT Championship, if I'm not mistaken.
They were.
So there is something there.
That's how long ago it was.
He has a long time, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if they play that into it or not, but there's something there at least. But I just don't think that there was any outrage, and I don't understand why Tony Khan would need to be upset about it. And I think from what I understand, there was at least some outrage because there were genuinely some people that were saying exactly that. Well, Jinder's not been on TV really, or not won a match in a year. Why is he getting the title shot? Because there are people that will call that out. You're usually one of those that would say something like that.
Yeah.
Were you outraged?
I'm not outraged. I'm just thinking it's a smart decision by WWE in a way that the video got that many views. Jinder's probably going to be on TV more than The Rock. So
3.7 million.
Yeah, whatever it was. And people were talking about Jinder.
Yeah.
No one really talks about. No, it's a bit weird though. This is happening a week before the big Rumble show, and Rollins hasn't got an opponent. I'm hoping this leads up to a match for Rollins to have at Rumble with somebody. If it's Jinder, I hope it's not the same as when Hugger Holly got a title shot against Brock because they had no one else.
Yeah. There's plenty they could do, isn't it? But
yeah,
I thought you was going somewhere else for that then. I thought he was going to go with Seth Rollins versus Hook.
Hey, why not? But it's like, if social media was a thing back when Goldberg was undefeated, do you think people would be calling for him to have a title match when he was on a hot streak?
Yeah, there's no doubt. No doubt about it, really. I think we've talked about bits like that before, where if social media were around at certain points, during the times where it wasn't, I think undoubtedly there would have seen, outrage at certain things, wouldn't we? But
there must be other wrestlers in both companies. Really, you could say, "Oh, they deserve a match over them," but
I just don't think it comes to that. It's wrestling, isn't it? It comes back to whatever you're booking, as long as it makes sense. And honestly, it's a world title match. It's happening on Raw. I just don't think it's that big of a a problem. I don't think it's offensive.
No.
Jinder Mahal getting a title match against Seth Rollins, I think is absolutely fine. Whoever you're going to book against Seth Rollins on Raw is not going to beat him for it anyway. So what does it matter?
But if the match is like a 20-minute match, then and it's not great, people are going to complain. If it's like 5 seconds, people are going to complain. You're not going to win with it.
I know, man, but I think if they give them time in that match, that's where Jinder can show again like what he's capable of.
If Samoa Joe
Jinder has a really good outing with Rollins, that could change Jinder's standing. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Like taking those opportunities to, if that's the plan, I don't know. I think you just got to watch it and find out. But just to say real quick, like Hook, I want to make real clear, I've always really liked Hook, but the irony for me is Tony Khan calling out the booking for WWE in this situation. I hold Tony directly responsible for the reason that Hook fell off. We talked about this in the last episode, but Hook's one of those, came out of the gate real strong, really liked it, loved that they were taking the angles from his dad, from Taz, and he no-sell a few bits, but he was having very quick matches, but he looked really, he looked good. He looked good in there. Like, he's a young lad, he's going out, the handsome devil, he's hitting really nice suplexes. You can tell he's Taz's son. I'm really excited for it. Got kick-ass entrance music. But again, booking-wise, long-term, he got saddled really in those throw-together tag teams, and that's done so many of them in. Tony's awful for doing this, like throwing people into these tag teams and factions, and it absolutely derails their momentum. And I'm sorry, but like there are way more people that it's derailed their momentum than it's helped lift them. For me, I'd be happy to at some point, maybe. Well, I wouldn't be happy. I might do it, but to put together a list at some point of all the people that kind of were on a good sort of run, then ended up in a tag team or a faction. And we'll see how many of them that helped go to the next level and how many it kind of derailed. But for me, it derailed Hook.
Well,
the
Danhausen stuff was good to begin with, but then they lost. I think they lost their first match, didn't they? On a buy-in.
Yeah, and exactly lost the first match on a buy-in, so immediately derailed. And it's the fact that also Danhausen doesn't exactly wrestle that much as it is.
No.
So then, by association, Hook wasn't wrestling that much.
Do you think it also helped
Jungle Hook and everything else? It's just.
Yeah, I think it also hurts this match happening because Joe's only just won a title, and he's not going up against MJF because MJF's out. He's not going against Adam Cole because he's injured. He's not going against Swerve because reasons. He's not going against Hangman because reasons. It's like,
yeah, there's nobody really at the moment that can take on, and I think that's one of the issues they probably got with the Devil storyline as well, where the top faction there now is the Devil, the Undisputed Kingdom, and they're all heels, but they're kind of feuding with more heels in Jay White, Bullet Club Gold, the Bang Bang Club. It's all just heels at the top. Joe's the heel champion. We're saying that Wardlow's going to take that title at some point soon, and Wardlow's obviously heel, and there's no faces. And again, this, I don't want to go into it because I ranted enough last week on it, but it's not building enough. We haven't built enough story in AEW for things to get like to the point where like, well, who's, what does Joe do now? Because now we have to go through this thing where like for however long, Samoa Joe's going to have the occasional challenger come up that's not really like a big build to it. So you kind of go, well, Joe's going to retain that one, Joe will retain that one, and then it becomes a bit clearer when it's someone that actually might take the title. Is normally how it goes. Hopefully it's different, but that is normally how it goes, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, that doesn't keep me, I'm not interested. That doesn't keep me invested. But I just think that closing thoughts on that, for me at least, is Tony Khan inadvertently made Jinder Mahal a bigger star this week. And what's really sad about it is that the emphasis was all on Jinder and not on Hook.
Yeah.
Because everybody was essentially feeling like they had to come and almost defend Jinder. Not that he really needed defending, but Jinder Mahal's statement back was, who the fuck is Hook, which is really sad because like Hook then had to take the brunt of it, and then Hook now looks like the laughing stock. Like, what a terrible,
but
just what a really bad judgment call, I think, honestly, from Tony Khan. So I just wish he'd stay off the socials. He should what?
He should have honored himself. That's going to put some butts in the seats.
Yeah, basically.
We see what the ratings say, because that's what counts in wrestling nowadays, and the key demos.
The key demos. Well, I think that's probably it for most of the main bits of news, really.
Well, there's nothing else, is there?
Slow news week, isn't it, when you got to talk about Twitter beef? But that's all right, Ash, because that brings us to the main event. It is, of course, time for the top 10 Royal Rumble winners of all time. Ash and I have composed our lists of 10. You can be a bit more excited than that. We've compiled our list of 10, and we're going to have our own list. So I think the way that we'll do this, we'll go through, we'll go 10 through 6. So individually, so you just do 10 through 6, then I'll do my 10 through 6. And we'll talk a little bit about sort of each one and why they're there. I think we probably, I don't know if we've approached the list differently to one another, but I'll explain my metric, I suppose, for the list, for the very, which by the way, everybody, obviously, it'd be interesting to know what your top 10s are. So do leave those in comments below, or see if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, you can leave them in the comments on the app. But it's a very, it's subjective list, obviously. There's no right or wrong with these sort of things, as there never is with wrestling. It is just purely our own personal lists. So for personal reasons, and that's why mine is how it is. Personally, I've looked at it and gone, there's an element of how much the win means to me, but also to try and look at it somewhat subjectively. So the greatest Royal Rumble winner is going to have it's going to have there you go. It's going to have a little bit of the build leading into that Rumble, but then of course not so much the Rumble itself, but maybe how iconic the win itself was. But for me, I think more than anything, it's actually where that win led to is what I'm looking at a lot here. So with a little sprinkle of again, personal bias, I guess, for some of them. Would you say that's probably about the approach you've taken, or have you taken a different kind of approach for yours?
A bit of that, and a bit of like, if it's more like say what it would lead up to, like Mania, how good their performance was, like if it was like a key moment in like their career.
Yeah, sounds about right to me.
So yeah, I think it's near enough the same.
Well, that sounds good.
Although it took me like a couple of minutes to write this list down.
I had to think really for some. Obviously, we'll get to it, but there's been a lot of rumbles.
I think we should also say it's like, what if it's a multiple winner? It has to be our favourite of their multiple wins.
Yeah, so I've only picked one person, like one on the list. So like someone like an Austin or a Michaels, Batista, anyone that's won like multiple Rumbles, if they're on the list. I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying they're not. Yeah, but if they're on the list, you would pick one, right? Because that's what I may have done if they're on the list.
And for some, most of them are like better than the others.
There are some just that really, really stand out. This will be a mixture. Well, it is for me at least, Ash. I imagine it is for you. But this is a mixture of the men's and women's for me.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's just easier to put them all into one list, the greatest ever. But 10 through 6, Ash, you want to kickstart us off then with your number 10, the 10th greatest Royal Rumble win or winner of all time.
All right, my number 10 is probably the most controversial because of who won it, Chris Benoit.
Would you say it's
So, yeah.
controversial? I mean, obviously, Chris Benoit's name is very controversial now, but I think if you're separating the artist from the art, which I personally do struggle with a bit with Chris Benoit.
Matches are fine for me because I think I've spoken on here about how I love Benoit Angle, Rumble,
three.
3 matches with like Jericho and Guerrero and the Rock matches. They're great matches. It's just that what happened at the end just ruins it.
That's the thing. It's always tainted the legacy of Chris Benoit. But I guess for the actual Royal Rumble itself, so 2004, and what it led to, it did lead to one of the most iconic, which of course now we don't really ever see it for understandable reasons, but it did lead to one of the most iconic pieces of imagery, really, in WWE history.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 20.
And what you think about it, could have been the match. If you chosen to stay on SmackDown, that could have been the match.
Yeah.
So that's my number 10.
Nice.
So number 9.
Number 9.
This one is more to do with the history. What history again is number 9 is Asuka from the 2018 Rumble.
Okay. Interesting. First ever Women's Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I think that's why I picked it more than anything. But it was a decent Rumble for what it was, the first one, and the rightful winner. Because when you look at that list, like she was undefeated back then, so it made sense. Undefeated, remember? Undefeated streaks are pretty cool.
That's a good point, actually. It's really actually easy to forget, I think, that during that time, Asuka was still on that really hot undefeated run.
Yeah.
So going into WrestleMania, she was undefeated when challenging Charlotte at WrestleMania.
34.
What was that then? 30? It was 34, was it? New Orleans.
Yeah. Which, if I remember correctly, you missed the finish. Or was that?
I did miss the finish.
And you missed another finish that night, didn't you?
I essentially missed the whole match in Undertaker and John Cena. But I was not expecting it to be as quick as it was. But there you go.
And I think I was one of the few that actually predicted Charlotte to win. Because it was the same.
Would have been back then. This was pre-podcast.
Yeah, but it's like I think everyone was picking Asuka to win because she was undefeated. But I think I picked Charlotte because it was the same building that Undertaker lost his undefeated streak at Mania. But but that's just like a reason to pick it, I reckon. But yeah,
that's a cool pick.
Yeah, at the time, I thought it was a good idea. It was the right choice, and yeah, that was my number 9. Number 8, probably people might have it higher. Stone Cold in 2001.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Reasons
being?
It was a good Rumble match. It had everything. They had great moments with Austin coming out and getting beaten up by Triple H and getting busted open badly, and yeah, you had in that Rumble match you had him facing up with The Rock, which is even though they've been together, they've done stuff together after Austin come back from the neck injury and been run over. Destroying Kane, he was amazing in that Rumble, being in there for like an hour. The Drew Carey stuff is amazing, Hall of Fame worthy. The Hardcore division having their segment.
Yeah, that was a really good Royal Rumble match, wasn't it?
Yeah, Haku being the last defector before obviously WWE folded. Funny enough, the last, I think he's the last person to win from the number 27, and for like however long they've done that promo package, about 27 being a lucky number, no one's won it in like 23 years now.
Yeah, which is ironic because for a long time nobody had ever won at number 30, and then now I think it is the most popular number to win at, which logically should make sense, right? So yeah, I'm surprised that's low on your list.
Yeah,
but it is on your list. I said at least it is on your list.
Yeah, because 97 and 98 aren't bad. It's just 97's tainted because Bret Hart should have won because Austin cheated. 98, I think he was probably the only one back then that could have won it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably had 3 chances and lost. So
what has made you pick the 2001 victory over, say, 98? You know, the one that actually led to him with his first World Wrestling Federation Championship win at WrestleMania 14.
Well, I think 90. Well,
for you,
I think the story of 01 made more impact.
Yeah.
98, because I think he was probably the only one that could have won it.
Because it was definitely his time. It was his year there though, wasn't it? Like for him to be the breakout star.
It's kind of like with I'm gonna say with Michaels again, but like the winning it the year before and not really getting the good chance, because 97 he won it, but didn't main event Mania, didn't get the title shot.
Yeah,
but he had a great match with Bret Hart, so that was his reward, I guess. But 98 was, like I say, apart from maybe like because The Rock was I think it was a bit too early for him.
But I mean, in terms of it being between the 2 Stone Cold wins, though, because I think you could pick either 1998 or 2001, and they're both. You could argue both to be in their own top 10 anyway, couldn't you? Really, because that's what I'm saying. 1998, at the very least, was because that signified the true beginning of Austin being in the main event scene. Like, he was already super over. Like, so I said earlier, actually breakout moment, but not really, because he'd already established himself as like this huge sort of fan favorite. But to actually be in the main event scene from that point onwards, you know, to be recognized as the face of the company, as the world champion, taking out Shawn Michaels, and of course the whole angle at WrestleMania as well, you know, with Mike Tyson, and it was going to be Michael's last match for, you know, until 2002. So it was his last one for 4 years. So, you know, either way you look at it, there was history for both, really. But you've gone for 2001.
I think 2001 is more of an iconic match itself than 98.
So the match is factored in there then.
And I think he the only one he won where it was the main event. Because I think 97 finished with Michael's Sid. 98 was the casket match. I think that main evented, and I think 01 was the main event. I might be wrong on that one. I might look it up, but I prefer 97. I prefer 2001.
2001 it is.
Yeah. So that's my number 8. Nice. Now number 7. This is a dodgy one. The Rock, 2000.
That's interesting.
It's not the greatest Rumble of all time, but I think it's got in my.
Just to be really clear with your list, because you're talking about the actual Rumble match itself a lot.
Yeah.
So you are factoring in the match more as well, right?
The match, what it led up to.
Yeah, see, because I've not done that with mine, so our list is going to be really interesting, like quite different, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really factoring the quality of the Rumble match for my one, but okay. Well, but that's still interesting, because with the Royal Rumble 2000 match itself, I think was potentially one of the weakest they had.
It's a mid-tier match, but I think I've gone it for the fact being British. It was Channel 4, so it was the first time it was on like terrestrial TV.
So there's that, and this is why the list, folks, has to be completely subjective, because there is always going to be level of bias in there, which is absolutely fine. But yeah, it was the only Channel 4 pay-per-view we ever had in the UK. I
mean, I should have put Big Show's name down instead of Rock's, because Big Show won, but
he did win.
But, it doesn't hurt, but this Rumble was one of the best Rumble shows as well.
It's a really good show itself. It's just the Rumble was always a little lacking.
Yeah, I mean, 2000 Rumble is more remembered probably for Kai and Tai and Mystery Posse, interfering than it is the match
Yeah.
itself.
And
But
who was it? Was it Tucker Michinoku had that really horrible bump?
yeah, he landed on his face. I kept showing it like 20 times.
Oh yeah, it looked
Then
like
and then was it Pete Gas broke his nose coming in the ring the second time?
yeah, a lot of injuries for that one. I think the
Yeah.
biggest issue for that Rumble match itself, really, slightly off tangent, but I think it was more outside of The Rock. Who else really would have won it? Rikishi had a really good showing,
At
but
the beginning,
outside
yeah.
of that, there wasn't really anyone there, was it? It was all mid card, and they're all really popular, but it's just, one of the headbangers isn't going to win the Rumble over The Rock, is he? So I think
No.
that was one of those. I think that's probably the biggest issue with the 2000 Royal Rumble, I would say.
But I think it's more to do with the memories of like being 9 years old at the time and watching it actually on free TV, and yeah, it was like great being a rock fan and like enjoy. It's like seeing one of your favorites actually win it. Doesn't hurt at all. And
Doesn't
it's better than
hurt at all.
99. It's better than 99. Let's just say that.
I wonder if he'll turn up on your list.
No.
No chance. That's what you got. Actually, that was 7 then.
No, so and number 6 is Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, nice.
Last year. What was she, number 2, number 1 or number 2, and yeah, going all the way. Not doing what they have done in the past, where someone's been number 1 and number 2, and take them out of the ring for like 20 minutes, and then coming back at the end. She was there all the time.
Mostly dominant.
How many did she eliminate? Like, I want to say she got more. I reckon she's got the most eliminations in the Women's Rumble.
I think
Let's
that was
see.
from the previous Rumble, though, wasn't it?
Might
Did she
have
hold
been.
the record
She got 7 last
in that
year.
particular Rumble?
Yeah. I think she got. I reckon she's got the most because Michelle McCall had it. She was in there for over an hour with Liv Morgan, who was the last one she eliminated.
That's a Royal Rumble trope now, isn't it? Keeping 1 and 2 until the end.
Well, it was the same. It was Gunther stayed in last year until the end, and Cody was number 30, weren't
he? Yeah, that's good. That's a nice 10 through 6. So interesting to see what your top 5 are going to be. I'll go through mine.
Go on.
10 through 6. Very different. My number 10 is 2020 Royal Rumble winner Charlotte Flair.
Okay.
So the reason I've put that one in there, for me, one of the things I wasn't too keen on at first, but again, a lot of these have the benefit now of hindsight on them. So, enough time has passed where we can see kind of what's happened since then. But as I say, my list is looking very much at kind of like not just the build. I'm not really looking at the match, but kind of where things led to. And for me, that Charlotte Flair win did more for Rhea Ripley long term than anything else, because it set a bit of a story there. We had, the first time and the only time that anyone's won the Royal Rumble and challenged for an NXT championship of any kind, men's or women's. So that alone was quite good. A very obviously weird time of year because the Rumble itself took place normally. And then, of course, that WrestleMania had to take place in front of no people. But Charlotte and Rhea, I think, had a really, really good match despite all of that at WrestleMania. So it's a weird one for my list because it's not really so much about what it did for Charlotte Flair. It was about what it did for Rhea Ripley, which I think really does speak a lot for Charlotte. Charlotte gets a lot of crap from people, but I think if you really look at some of the stuff she does, she's absolutely helped elevate people that she's had angles with. Not necessarily everybody, but then you can't name me anyone that's elevated absolutely everybody. with any angle they've been in. So yeah, it's a weird one for my number 10. But Charlotte Flair from 2020 because of what it did for Rhea Ripley more than anything. My number 9, a lot more story behind it, but it is 2006 Royal Rumble winner Rey Mysterio. Potentially could have been higher on my list, but again, with hindsight behind this one, I wasn't really a fan of the build to WrestleMania. I think the fact that Rey was kind of going to be the favourite to win this Royal Rumble, really because of what had sadly happened with Eddie Guerrero in November of 2005, when he passed away suddenly in his hotel room. Obviously, Rey being one of the associated figures with Eddie, really, you know, all that history they had together, but certainly on WWE television, you know, Rey winning the Rumble from number 2 or number 1?
Yeah, number 2.
Number 2. And again, what we just said about number 1 and 2 staying until the end, but Rey and Triple H, you know, in there until the very, very end, and Rey eliminates.
Orton.
And Orton, sorry, yeah, Orton was the last one in there. But yeah, so winning the Rumble itself is a great moment. Of course, it then led to Rey Mysterio actually winning the championship in the triple threat at WrestleMania. But like I say, it could have been higher for me, but the build, I didn't like that Eddie was being used to that extent in that build. So yeah, for me, it was a bit more, it felt more like exploitation, really, more than anything. So, which is a shame because, again, really cool moment for Rey to win at WrestleMania. But, you know, the run itself with the world title, I don't think was that great. The story going into it was a bit, you know, whatever. But I think it still needs to go on there because Rey winning the Royal Rumble is still a moment that we all do talk about. So it absolutely holds its place. And I love to see him actually win it. Again, you know, from that childhood aspect, that was great to see him actually win it. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I couldn't really put it any higher than that.
Does it also hurt the fact it was mid-card? Obviously, we've had Rumble matches open lately, but back then it was always like the main event.
Main event normally, yeah. If it was, at least if it was going to be for the championship, it was, yeah.
Yeah. The reason they did that was because of Taker, but
yeah, I don't know. For me, I don't think it is necessarily the fact that it wasn't main event. It wouldn't change where it goes. It wouldn't change where it goes on my list. Like I say, for all the other reasons, that's enough reason for me for it to be a bit lower. But it's number 9. My number 8, you've already said it, but my number 8 is Rhea Ripley 2023. Ties back in now to Charlotte Flair's win in 2020, which is my number 10. But Rhea's win last year, 2023, you can say what you want about the current run, but she is still the champion after defeating Charlotte Flair in what I think was the best women's. It's hard to say because I still love Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair from a few years back at WrestleMania. So it's really difficult. I don't know which one I'd say is the best of the two if I had to pick one. But the match itself I thought was so good, and what it's done for Rhea Ripley setting her up. But it's the fact that they had that history there before, you know, in 2020 in front of nobody, Charlotte Flair winning the Rumble, going after Rhea's title, and this time Rhea's gone, no, I'm going for your title. And then she actually, you know, she pulls through. She's changed as a character, changed as a person. She's a heel now. She's formidable. Perfect. I think really good just story there, wasn't there? I just really enjoyed it. So I think what that win has meant for Rhea Ripley has been huge going forwards. And we've only had not even quite a year yet, you know, behind that victory at the Royal Rumble. And it's been, I still think, you know, a really good run for Rhea in terms of making her one of the main faces of WWE. With or without the title, which she does still hold. And again, that's why I'm saying you can't really necessarily put the title defenses and angles around the championship into the decision for this one. At least I didn't. But yeah. Mommy, got to show her some love. My number 7, Ash. This was difficult to decide which one. I'm looking for Shawn Michaels.
All right.
1996.
Okay.
Really, 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 really difficult to choose because back-to-back Rumble victories. 95, of course, coming in first and winning was the first time it had ever happened. so it's historic in its own right. But for me, 1996, I had to go with because, again, long-term wise, that's what led to the boyhood dream has come true. Winning the championship in a WrestleMania match that's somewhat divisive, I suppose just because of the length of it more than anything. It was the rivalry that defined that era of World Wrestling Federation. Bret the Hitman Hart, Shawn Michaels. That Rumble win leading up to that is what because that's the cementing of Shawn Michaels being in that main event with a WrestleMania main event win over Bret Hart for the world title. So I've gone for that one, but that's really difficult to choose between the two.
All right,
they're both iconic, and they both had, I would argue, good outcomes for HBK after the fact. But yeah, that's my number 7.
The only thing about 96 though that's weird about that Rumble match is Vader eliminates Michaels after Vader's been eliminated, and they go, no, that doesn't count. But the amount of times afterwards where that's happened, and they're on, yeah, that counts.
Yeah. But like I say, I'm not looking at the match so much. So for you, it's going to be different on your list, which is good. But my number 6 then, before we dive into our top 5s, my number 6 is the joint win, 1994, Bret the Hitman Hart and Lex Luger. Few different reasons for this one. One, of course, because it's the only time we've had a double win, and they kept it as a double win.
Yeah,
because it was meant to be booked that way. But also because it was the redemption of Bret. Because obviously what happens in 1993 was, I think most of us are in unanimous agreement. Bret was really definitely screwed way before Montreal. That main event at WrestleMania 9 was just lousy. Really lousy, proper Ronda lousy. Hogan coming out at the end and just stealing it, So for this time, it's really cool because it's the double win, which is like iconic enough on its own, I think.
Yeah.
But it's what it meant for Bret overall was great. It's just a shame that Lex never really kind of got that. He never got it, but then I think they screwed him over with SummerSlam, but that's a whole other issue, the Lex Express. But yeah, big one, I think, that one for me.
And Bret Hart did well considering like an hour before that he got his leg kicked out of his leg.
He did, yeah. He got his leg kicked out of his leg. And you gotta love it. And that was, that's a big thing because that WrestleMania as well, it's easy to sometimes forget which kind of bit of Bret you want to see because we're always really talking about that opening match between him and Owen, which is still one of the, if not potentially the best opener to WrestleMania ever, opening match.
Yeah.
Fantastic match. And then, of course, Bret then has the main event, taking the title off of Yokozuna.
Bit of a weird finish, but when you know the story, then yeah.
Yeah, but it just felt like the do-over of WrestleMania 9, which is what they should have just done to begin with. But we got there in the end a year later. Huh?
Then Luger comes out, beats up Bret.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that people forget about 9 is they did like a charity event, I think the day before, and Lex Luger knocks out Bret Hart with his forearm, but they never mentioned that at Mania itself. Mania 9. I don't know if they ever mentioned it like in the build-up for Mania 10, but
they don't tend to really mention much about Mania 9 in general, do they? It's not exactly heralded as one of the best WrestleManias.
No, it starts off well, then goes downhill very quickly.
Very quickly, but yeah. So that's my number 6. So we're officially in the top 5s now. So should we run 5 through 2?
Okay.
5 to 2, and then we can both do our number 1s.
I did that before we started. So number 5 is Batista in 05.
Oh, speaking of double wins.
Yeah. But this one was not meant to happen, but it's one of the best ones ever.
Oh yeah.
It's like
you couldn't have even worked that better.
Even though, and I've seen the footage a few times, I think Cena I think Batista touched first. Cena won.
I genuinely think their feet hit exactly the same moment.
But it made,
I really do.
yeah. And then obviously people talk about the aftermath of Vince and doing his quads, I should say.
Which is a moment all in its own right.
Yeah. But the
Yeah.
Rumble match itself, again, is pretty decently done, apart from maybe when Daniel Pewter gets destroyed by Hardcore Holly, Benoit, and Guerrero, I think he was at the time. You had the beginning of Angle Michaels for their match in Mania. You had Paul London doing the Shooting Star Sale, which apparently got heat backstage.
Did it really? I didn't know that.
I think I've heard somewhere that that Shooting Star Sale got heat. I don't know if it's like bad heat, but like apparently they weren't happy.
It's such a good sell, such a good bump he took. It's one of like the greatest eliminations in a Rumble match ever, I think, up to that point, potentially even now.
Yeah, it's up there with I like Sabu getting chokeslammed through a table.
Yeah, it made no sense, but it was cool.
But it also did help. It also helped Cena again because I've sure we said it before, but the idea definitely for that was to have Batista be the superstar and Cena being number 2. It quickly went the other way around.
Yeah, it did.
But
it did.
At the time, Batista was the superstar, and yeah. Also, did you know that Batista and Cena debuted on the same SmackDown? That's another coincidence, isn't it?
SmackDown, yeah, that's mad, isn't it? What an error that we didn't know that we were entering at that time, but we did.
I mean, Orton, Batista, Lesnar debuted first, then Orton, and then Batista and Cena debuted on the same show. It's weird, isn't it?
That is,
where they became.
That is mad.
Yeah, that's my number 5.
What they meant to the business.
Yeah, and now look at Batista now and like Cena now, like without like away from wrestling.
Yeah, crazy. No, that's it's an iconic Rumble win. Easily. It's actually number 5. Iconic.
So my number 4 was my number 2, but I've decided to change it. Number 4 is Becky Lynch.
Yeah. Most iconic of all the women's, probably, isn't it?
I think so, because once again, what did it lead up to? The first ever women's main event at WrestleMania.
Yeah, which whether you liked that finish or not is still irrelevant. The fact that they got a main event at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And it's not even the only one, is it? Technically?
It was the first one, because then you had like night 1 of 37, and I think it's the second one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, that's it so far, isn't it?
Yeah. But what it meant, once upon a time, a women main event in WrestleMania, not in a million years. But what I really like about that one was the fact that there genuinely no one, and this wasn't because like everything else was bad, but nothing like that was the highest angle.
It was
easily, and that's what it should be about. It's not about like trying to fill the quota that we should have this or we should have that. Like it should be whoever's deserving, and they were 100%. Charlotte maybe not so much. I think we all kind of really wanted.
It should have been 1-on-1, but
yeah,
it should have been 1-on-1. But I think Charlotte had done enough to actually get in it because by the time
the angle. Yeah, exactly. And I think by the time that I still love the part of the bit of the build where they're scrapping in the parking lot for America, but the car park for us.
What the week before? Was it the Raw before?
I think it was. Yeah, and they're scrapping, aren't they? Like in the car.
Oh, that great moment where Charlotte's handcuffed and does that knee to Ronda.
Brutal, grisly knee. Yeah, it was great. And then Charlotte's entrance at that Mania in the helicopter.
It just didn't look real, but the way they've done it, it's just like insanely done. But going back to the Rumble itself, she replaced Lana, who got injured after being in a match against Asuka where she lost in a very good match, and it was the right thing. It was like I can't say much about the Rumble match itself, but it was the right call. Because who else apart?
It was Becky's time as well. Even taking away that main event, Becky was undeniable at this point.
Am I right in thinking
it was almost like Daniel Bryan level of like, if she hadn't have won that Rumble this time around, people would have been up in arms.
Yeah. Because am I right in thinking like she's halfway down the ring and then they play her music?
I remember.
But yeah,
Only your brain would remember that.
Yeah, but Finlay was the one who said yes, so.
Seth Rollins said yes as well, didn't he? Technically. And Seth Rollins said yes, actually, but.
Well, actually, she might
say
yes.
Yeah. Just a bad joke, actually. That's all it was. Anyway, that's your number. What was that, 4?
Your number 4, yes, because I changed it from number 2.
Oh, okay. All right then. So what we got next? What's number 3?
Number 3 is Shawn Michaels 1995.
You've gone for 95. Yeah, I figured you had when I was saying 96.
Yeah, I just think 95 is, once again, it's not the greatest Rumble. It's only like 40 minutes in length because they decided, we'll do it every minute someone enters.
Yeah.
And it was the first time they did number 1 and number 2 finishing off the match with Bulldog. And being British and being a kid, I was excited when I thought Bulldog had won. But no, Michaels only 1 foot touch, which I think was the first time anyone had ever done that.
I think it was, and the amount of times that got replayed over the years. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I think the other thing for me, like you said there, having shorter intervals between the entrances. I think there was we talked about this actually just with the Rumble 2000, but I think, like I said, I've not factored the actual Rumble in to mine, but that Rumble match itself was quite difficult because they didn't really have a lot of star power. 95, that was a tough year for them. No, and you look at a lot of the names that were in it, and it was all those those super gimmicks, wasn't it? Like everyone had a job title,
Yeah.
And it is a lot of those guys in it, but 100%, I would argue that the finish to the 95 Rumble is still one of the best finishes to a Rumble ever.
Yeah.
It's so it's still just so vivid. Like Michael's skipping the cat and then running over, knocking Bulldog off the turnbuckle when he goes out, and it's just,
I can give you some of the names.
95.
I can give you some of the names from 95 if you want.
I'll see if I can guess some. Was what's his name? Duke the Dumpster, was it?
Let's have a look. No, Dick the Dumpster. I think it was the next year.
Dick the Dumpster.
Duke.
That wasn't his name. Dick the Dumpster.
I said Duke, you deaf bastard.
I bet you'd like to Dick the Dumpster, wouldn't you?
Why not?
You fucking animal.
There's a couple of massive names that we would say massive names, but not.
I said a massive name, Dick the Dumpster.
No, you've got the Bushwhackers. You've got the Blues Brothers, who were the Harris twins.
Right.
Doyton Clown.
Okay.
Billy and Bart Gunn.
Sure.
We got Dick Murdoch, so you were close enough. You got Rikishi Fatu as Fatu. Aldo Montoya. Owen Hart. Doink. Lex Luger. So yeah, it's not exactly the greatest list of names, but
it's in your top
also
10.
One another reason why 95 is so high in my opinion is because it introduced me to Pamela Anderson. So there you go.
What more do you need to say? Hopefully less.
Yeah.
So that's number 3.
That's my number 3.
Yeah.
My number 2 is a very good pick in my opinion, and that's why it's number 2. Undertaker, 2007. And
That's,
possibly
yeah.
one of my favorite Rumble finishes of all time.
That is really where I think the birth of we used to call it the mini match at the end of the Rumble now, isn't it? Like that was the first time I think I've seen them kind of basically have the Royal Rumble match, and then they have like a separate match for the last two people in it, you know, where it's actual kind of like back and forth, like having a match. And we see it a lot now, and that's a good thing. I like it. I mean, one of the best ones, obviously, more recently, was actually last year between Cody and Gunther. That was a really good exchange between the two of them.
Because you consider things like, well, 92 was like those early ones. Apart from 90, I think 93 was like was probably the first one that wasn't like elimination, then elimination. But 90, you go to 96 with Michaels. I think it's like he eliminates someone, then eliminates Diesel straight away. 97 was very close to someone eliminated. Do you have like moments of like 99, 2000 where it's a few minutes, but it's not exactly long? But 2007, I think it's like 10 minutes worth of Taker Michaels.
Yeah.
You've got
which was an awesome precursor to WrestleMania 25, which would happen a couple of years after that as well.
And if I'm correct, yeah, it was in Texas as well, that Rumble, which is where WrestleMania 25 was.
Yeah.
You also have the first ECW names in it, like
Well, that's the Sabu elimination
Sabu
through the table.
Opens with Flair and Finlay. You had
that was cool. That was really cool. Yeah.
You had Great Khali's debut.
So Michael's telling to look at the camera.
Look at the camera. Look at the camera. You also had Miz getting eliminated in 7 seconds. Whatever happened to him?
Yeah.
Rated RKO dominating for a bit, beating the shit out of Taker and Michaels. You had
that's the day when the super kick was so powerful it could eliminate people from the Rumble. So I still like Edge's sell, like that bump over the top rope where he kind of did the whole. It's almost like that Kane, you know, like how Kane would get out of the ring, like go over the ropes backwards. Looked awesome.
And this also had one of those moments where someone eliminated someone who was already eliminated, but that counted. Where King Booker eliminated Kane, which led to their match at not King of the Ring, fuck's sake. It led to No Way Out. Nothing else. But yeah. Taker winning the first person to win from 30, which led to tradition because it happened again the next year.
Yeah, the very first one, and it took all that time for someone to win from the 30 spot.
And it's also a very good. It's not the greatest Rumble show itself, but it does have one of the greatest Rumble matches of all time with Cena and Umaga last one standing, and you got a great Rumble match itself.
There you have it. That's your number 2.
That's my number 2.
That's your number 2. Well, my number 5, top 5, well, 5 through 2. My number 5, we've just talked all about it, but it is The Undertaker in 2007. All the same reasons, but for me, again, it was the all-time favourite's The Undertaker. So as a kid, really, at the times, I was still at school. I'd have been 14, I think, 13, 14 at that time. Actually, I'd have been 13 when Taker actually won the Rumble. So for me, huge moment. I remember like literally running down the halls being like, yeah, because like there was a few of us that like kind of watch wrestling. But I was really, really happy Taker had won the Rumble. And it led to, it's not so much like the other guys. Like Taker already had a huge historic career behind him. So it's not necessarily for what it set up for him again going forwards, but he had that really great match with Batista at WrestleMania. But it was just good to see him like actually have a good world title run, and for me, a good world championship match at WrestleMania, which I just felt like he hadn't quite had like that iconic world title match. at WrestleMania, whether it be for the WWE, WWF, whatever championship at Mania.
I mean,
One
the
with
year before
Batista
that,
and
he had that match with Angle. Well, he had that match with Angle the year before, but that was no way out. But that could have been Mania easily.
WrestleMania, yeah.
But for
Mania,
Mania,
then
yeah.
to actually win it and get that kind of the iconic, Undertaker pose. So yeah, number 5 for me.
And I think it also
number
kickstarted his iconic run, which he didn't have, which like the Batista match and the Edge match, and then Michael, and that just kicked it off for me.
It led up to so much good stuff, yeah. Which again, like helped Edge, it helped other people. So I suppose it is similar to the Charlotte Flair pick for me. It's in some regards.
That's fine.
Yeah, obviously from a personal nostalgia standpoint, mainly that's why I take a rank so high on mine. My number 4, though, Ash, might surprise you because I've got a feeling I know what your number 1 is going to be. Well, my number 4, with a tear in my eye, it's the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, 1992. I will say, if this is your number 1, we'll get to it, I'm sure, obviously, but this is a lot of people's number 1, and for good reason. The reason it's not my number 1 is because it's still really difficult for me to look back and not see how they couldn't have done Flair and Hogan like it was supposed to happen. I understand why it didn't. I understand the politics of why it didn't go down. If you literally just spend 30 minutes, if that, looking at the history of Hulk Hogan at this point, and it'll become very clear why it didn't happen, I'm sure. But it could have been so much more, but it absolutely needs to be on somebody's top 10 list. First one that was for the championship, and he wins the World Wrestling Federation title in the Royal Rumble. One of only 2 Royal Rumbles where titles actually been on the line, and in the Rumble match itself. And again, it's the win itself is a bit because again, Hogan had to be involved, and Hogan sort of ruins a bit of it for me, I think, and that's probably super silly. Again, it's on a lot of people's number 1 for very good reason, but it is number 4 because it provided again some of the most one of the best promos of all time with Ric Flair afterwards. It's one of the most famous lines of dialogue in any wrestling promo ever. To the point, all you have to do is show a screenshot of it, and you know exactly what that promo is, when it was, and you hear it in your mind. Like, that's how powerful the imagery is. But yeah,
I use that line with a tear in my eye when Banbury got in the first qualifying. They qualified to be in the first round proper of the FA Cup years ago, because I thought it would be something I'd never see in my lifetime. And yeah,
there you go.
But I didn't say put that cigarette out. Like, I mean, Gene does. That's another kind of moment.
Yeah, man. But that's number 4 for me. That one. Number 3. You got to be fair to Flair. My number 3, already mentioned, so I won't go too much more into it. But Becky Lynch, 2019. All the reasons we said, Ash. It was women's first main event at WrestleMania. Becky was on fire. Look at her now. The different incarnations that we've had from her. The Man, big time Bex. Megastar Becky Lynch now, and with or without that Rumble, but that Rumble, that was her Rumble to win, and she did. So
yeah, it was.
Yeah, really, really, really good. And my number 2 is Stone Cold Steve Austin, 2001.
Fair enough.
We talked about it earlier. My reason for picking 2001, I think, slightly different to yours. Again, it was really tough because it's like the Michaels one. The 98 one meant so much because he wins the title. But for me, again, winning 2001, my favourite WrestleMania of all time, WrestleMania 17, it is the ending to the Attitude Era. It's the best WrestleMania of all time.
Second.
You don't want to go there in this episode. It's the end of the Attitude Era, and it's but it was like the perfect end, like in terms of how good WrestleMania was.
Was it a good end when Vince and
If you take away potentially the heel turn of Austin at the end, that's why it's not my number one. It could have been number one, but that is one of those, but it's what it led to. And again, some of them promos, it's weird. There's a certain like nostalgic element to it. But Limp Bizkit My Way, that video package to WrestleMania 17, everything, like Austin absolutely must win the title. Just that time of wrestling, man. Just that time of wrestling for me. Just kiss. But yeah, number two, and all the other reasons that you did say, but like I say, because it led into the greatest WrestleMania of all time, WrestleMania 17, and capped off the end of the Attitude Era, which I think is fitting because Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't alone, obviously. Rock was a huge name, everything else, but he shared the main event with The Rock. The two kind of guiding lights, I guess, through the Attitude Era for Wrestling Federation to win the Monday Night Wars. But Austin was like there first, if that makes sense. So him winning the Rumble, yeah, just makes sense. But that's my number two. So we're on to our number ones.
Well, do you want to do honorable mentions now or after number one? If you've got any.
Honorable mentions. Yeah, Michael's 95 for me was honorable mention. Austin 98, like I say, honorable mention. I think Triple H 2002.
Yeah, I've not watched that much back.
About it.
I haven't watched that much in a long time, so I can't really comment on that one.
Yeah, I thought about it, but it's just it couldn't quite go into the top 10. I'll be honest, this is one of the easiest top 10s I've done.
Yeah,
because there's a lot that would be nowhere near a top 10, really.
I thought about Ray, but it just didn't. I think it's because, like, not long after that, he lost the title shot and they had to he just got given it like the week later. It's like that put it down a bit for me. And yeah, there've been years with 08 with Cena, maybe we could have been in there.
Yeah, even Edge's one in 21. I kind of thought about a little bit, and Bianca Belair for the same reasons like the others. Like it really meant a lot to her career.
But I think it being with no crowd did affect it a little bit.
I think it affected my decisions. Yeah, on that, which is a big shame. It's not their fault, obviously.
It's like Drew in 2020, but does that get overshadowed by Edge's return?
I think just for me, again, because of 2020, like Charlotte winning it, like I said, and what it meant for Rhea going forwards, but it played into the story because Rhea got her redemption. Drew's not really had it yet, and I know that's a story they're kind of telling at the minute where he's had to go heel. So it could be a similar thing like Rhea, but Drew not quite had that redemption yet. So I don't know.
There's a few years.
About it, my honorable mentions.
Yeah, because there's a few years of the Rumble match when there's just like Batista in 2014 and Roman 2015 was like, well, it's not the greatest of all time, but it's better than 22. Let's just say that with Brock and Ronda.
There you go.
And 99 is obviously 99 was the greatest one, but we just don't want to say it.
We just don't want to say it. Yeah, I don't want to get cancelled. So was I right? What I think it is?
Go on. Well, you should know because I gave you the list before.
I think I skimmed it quick, but you changed a lot of what was on it. So
I changed a little bit.
I think is it Ric Flair?
Yes, it is Ric Flair.
Yeah. See, you're following the crowd, isn't he? Following the noise. I'm at 8. Don't rise to it. It's a perfectly valid. It's so many people's best one ever.
And it's like probably like the best example for a Rumble match where like Ric Flair comes in number 3. Don't expect him to do anything because Bulldog and like just eliminated DiBiase that quickly, and like the amount of people that were after Flair, like Piper and Hogan and Savage, it's like this guy ain't got a chance.
Yeah,
but he does. He wins it. Like Yeah, obviously you say like you said with Hogan, Costin, Sid, but when you think about it, that kind of did get away to their match at Mania more than it could have done for Hogan being facing Flair. But yeah, and you got like I think it's like just you just got the just turned heel Shawn Michaels. You've got the like Savage and Jake Snake moment, even with Savage admitting himself, but then coming back like nothing happened. Taker looking dominant. Didn't get ruined by Giant Gonzalez, which happened a year later. But yeah, it's like Bobby Heenan just like steals it, being like when Piper helps out Flair, like, oh, I love you, I love you. And then like 5 seconds later when Piper hits Flair, like, I've always hated you. It's like it's class stuff. You can't deny it. And even small things like the poster for 92 and how iconic that is. That also helps.
That's a hell of a poster. That was actually one of my favourite ones for so long. They sort of recreated it to a degree, didn't they, for
01, I think.
Pro 1, yeah, which is again is awesome. I love that. I wish I'd have done more of those actually, but
yeah, there should
that
be.
makes total sense as a number one. My number one, actually, you've already said them as well, but it's number one for me. It's Batista 2014. I think Batista's win in 2014 was quite simply the best. I think no one else was deserving to win it. I think Daniel Bryan not being in it at all was absolutely perfect. He didn't deserve it.
He had a match before. He shouldn't be in it.
Exactly. He shouldn't have been in it. And I think it's a crying shame that Batista didn't win at WrestleMania. But I'm joking.
Yeah, Orton winning was the best choice.
Batista in 2005, for me, is the greatest of all time. And I think the reason it is, everything is kind of perfect because it wasn't perfect. And it's just crazy. Like, Batista was supposed to win the Royal Rumble. And when he gets John Cena up for the Batista bomb for the power bomb, I guess, one or the other it would have been, I guess. And they kind of both go and they both fall out of the ring and their feet hit exactly the same moment. Like, you just couldn't have planned it any better. And it was all an accident. Vince coming out, ripping both his quads is this iconic thing. And he just sat there in the ring. They have to restart. Batista wins, but then they both go to WrestleMania 21. Yes, Batista gets the main event with Triple H, but, Cena obviously becomes the bigger star, really, in the long term. But they both win their world championships at WrestleMania 21. And that really is the start of that new era. And so I think that's where there's a bit of a similarity between Austin being at my number two, because it was the end of one era, and then this one in 2005 was kind of really the beginning of an era that was going to last for a hell of a long time, really. With Cena and Batista on top. But it's just it just works. It just works for me. That one, it just works because, again, look at both of their careers from this point onwards. It's been, until more sort of recently, especially with like just Reigns and maybe some of the others, but Batista and Cena and Orton as well, really, but were the big names in wrestling for the longest time. So yeah, it's my number one. It's gone in at number one. But I nearly did put Stone Cold at number one, I'll be honest.
Well, one thing I've just remembered, I almost had Jim Duggan in my list, but I think that's more to do with the fact he was the first winner, like I done Asuka.
But not greatest ever.
No,
surely not. Well, I do love a good top 10. I do. And that was as we normally do, we have a lot of the same ones in. We just have them at different orders. But maybe one day it'll be different when we do our next ones, whichever it'll be, top 10. But what I think we would both like, Ash, is if the viewers and the listeners wanted to let us know what your top 10 greatest Royal Rumble winners of all time would be. And once again, you can do that down in comments below on YouTube. You can do that on Spotify and Apple Podcast in the comments section. If you are listening on either of those two platforms, you can leave us a 5-star review, and I really do think you should. We could be in your top 10 podcasts of the year. We were for a few people last year. Thank you to all 3 of you. It is appreciated.
Well, me, you, and who?
It wasn't on my top ones last year. So I don't listen to them back up there anymore. Once the editing has taken place. No, mine's a history podcast because I love me some history. But anyway, digress. We hope you enjoyed the show. The Rumble is soon to be around the corner. Next episode will be probably reviewing it, really. I think, we'll have the predictions video coming out this week. We're starting anew. I'm hoping to whoop that candy ass there in the predictions this year.
I'm gonna make you look like Hook.
Yeah? Who the fuck is Hook? I'm the modern day Maharaja. Doesn't really work for me, does it?
No.
But everybody, I hope you've had a great time with us today on the episode. We will catch you again very soon in the next one, which we will be covering the Royal Rumble 2024. And until then, I suppose have a great one. And don't do anything Ash wouldn't do.
Win predictions.
See you later, everybody.